Hey there everyone, and I thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of My Orchid Adventures with me, Maria Young. So in today's episode, we're going to be featuring the angraecum orchid, and a specific angraecum to be exact, because I do have a phenomenal specimen size of an angraecum that I want to share with you today. But we're going to be talking all about the angraecums in general, so today we will learn more about these phenomenal orchids. And just to give you a little bit more information about the angraecum orchids, they are considered angraecoids, and majority of the species are coming from Madagascar. Also, you should note that there is quite a variation in sizes that they can come in, from the more miniature, smaller varieties all the way up to your specimen size monster of an orchid. And speaking of monster size of an orchid, I am definitely very excited to show you this one. So let's not waste any more time and let's do it right now. Bam, 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 boom. And here she is, guys. I am so proud to introduce to you this Humunga Dunga Monster of a specimen size of an angraecum. Indeed, she is quite massive. Now, I can't even fit her fully in the screen because she is so huge, but there you go. Can you get a better view of her? She stands at a whopping 3 feet tall, including her spikes. So indeed, she is quite massive. Okay, so standing at 3 feet tall, and as you can see, she is also very, very wide. But then, can you imagine? Take a look right there. Can you guys see at the base? There are actually 4 keikis growing right along. So 4 keikis on this nice sized angraecum. So you can imagine just how massive this orchid can become. It is quite normal to see them get this big. So you definitely have to check out the type of angraecum you have to ensure yourself that you're not going to end up with an uncontrollable monster, especially if you do not have the space or cannot take care of this. So indeed, this right here is going to clump up in quite a massive size with all of the keikis. And again, it's quite normal for angraecums to do that. They do throw off a lot of keikis from the base. So in nature, you find these just humongous, such a massive amount of angraecums. And these will normally grow on trees and also in tree trunks. So you can imagine just watching this or seeing this in nature and just how incredible it is, growing wild and growing carefree. Also, we have to understand that this will give an abundance of blossoms. So on this one in particular, it has 2 spikes, and on those 2 spikes altogether there is 17 big sized blooms. And the blooms are actually, I would say, including the spur, is about 5 inches long. So very nice sized blooms on these as well. You're going to find that they do have such incredible shapes. A lot of them do have a star-shaped quality to them, and definitely having such a nice, almost brassavola type lip. But the entire bloom is so just structurally sound, meaning that it is just so waxy, so durable, and very, very thick in its consistency. So nice, waxy, beautiful blooms on these. And also the spikes, we have to understand, do not grow naturally upright. This is actually staked up. In nature, this will grow pendulum. So the actual spikes are going to grow downward. And if you want to display this in its natural form, you're going to have to make sure that you can stand this or elevate it to a heightened level where the spike can actually dangle down and you can still appreciate this type of orchid. So hanging it in a basket can create such an incredible display with these orchids. But just as a side note, I do want to let you guys know that there are some angraecums that do have spikes that actually grow upright and they don't need to be staked up. I'm just referring to primarily the orchid that I have. Okay, so let us take a closer look at her so that we can see her just a little bit more in detail and also talk to you a little bit more in depth about her. So let's go ahead and talk about what she is. As I stated, she is a hybrid, and in particular, she is an Angraecum alabaster Williamsburg. This orchid is monopodial, meaning that it will grow upwards and from the top. And she is very wide in length, as you can see here, and also very, very tall in height, standing at 3 feet tall. 2 gorgeous blooming spikes with a total of 17 flowers. Her bloom, including the spur, is about 5 inches in diameter, giving her a nice size for her blooms. And also another fabulous attribute about these blooms is the fact that they are very long-lasting and can last up to 2 months or more. And the blooms are very structurally sound. It's very thick, very waxy, and you are not going to have to worry about this being damaged by the wind because indeed it is durable and capable of withstanding the storm. The petals and also the sepals of the flower is a darker lime green. While taking a look at the lip area, you're going to notice that it is a lighter lime green, also infused with a white. You're also going to notice that the petals and the sepals come together, giving this bloom a star-like quality, and you're going to notice that it has a very sharp point at the end. Also, if we take a look at the actual lip, you're going to notice a heart shape within that lip, and again, it also comes to a very sharp point. And if we take a look at the actual arrangement of the blooms and the spike, we are going to notice that it does look somewhat awkward and something just doesn't sit right with the orchid. Well, the reason being is this is not the way that it would actually grow in nature. Of course, this has been manually staked up. In nature, as I stated, it would be cascading downwards, and we would notice that the blooms are actually recipient, meaning that it is an upside down bloomer. And here we find a bloom that is more in its natural state, where you are finding that indeed it does look upside down. And that is because it is allowing access to the moth that needs to pollinate this, and it's going to allow them to stick their sucker right into there and get the nectar. But it should be noted that not all angraecums bloom in this manner. There are actually many angraecums that bloom their blossoms right side up. Now, unfortunately, there is not a variation in the color scheme of these angraecums or these angraecoid type of orchids. They will remain the alba color form, either green or white or green and white, and sometimes even a creamy yellowish color. Because in this orchid, it isn't a necessity to have bright and bold colors, because the pollinators that they are trying to attract are nocturnal, and they will only come out at night. What is most important to this orchid is to be colored in such a way that it is going to stand out most in the dark, and this is what Mother Nature has selected. And to further assist these moths in their journey and their mission, this will actually emit a very strong fragrance at night as well, intoxicating to some, but just right for nocturnal moths. And this subject right here brings a memory to mind. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play some old footage for you now explaining the in-depth detail of the angraecum and also the nocturnal moth. And here's yet another vandaceous orchid. This is actually an angraecum, sesquipedale to be exact, also known as the Darwin's orchid, and also known as the Christmas orchid because this does bloom in the colder winter months. And to give you more of a description on the flowers on these actually bloom an alba color. You're going to see green and white and a very nice star-shaped bloom. And when this comes into maturity, of course, this is known to grow lots of keikis and also shoots. And once it is at a great mature size, very well established, you will find that this can bloom several spikes, giving such a phenomenal and very fragrant display. And one of the most interesting and amusing trait about the blossom is the fact that it does have a very, very long spur, also known as a nectarine, that will hang down very, very low, about like 12 inches. And because it is so long, it does require a symbiotic relationship with a particular insect, and in particular a nocturnal moth that has a sucker that is long enough to not only pollinate this orchid but also receive the actual nectar from the flower. So very amusing indeed is the shape, and of course the story behind the Darwin's orchid. And this one in particular is a species angraecum. So indeed, there is a variation from different types of angraecum. So always keep that in mind as well. Okay, so let us go ahead and talk about some culture and care tips for this orchid. The prime temperature conditions for this orchid is said that it definitely likes to have a separation in its daily temperature to its nightly temperature, and there is a 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit difference. So in the daytime, a good temperature for this orchid would be in the 70s or 80 degrees in Fahrenheit, while at night it should go down to about 55 to 60 degrees in Fahrenheit. And it should also be noted that this orchid will appreciate 50 to 70% in humidity. It is said that the best lighting for this would be in between the Phalaenopsis and also the Cattleya. Not as shady as the Phalaenopsis, but also not as bright as the Cattleya either. So somewhere in between. Although there have been some that have said that this can actually tolerate Vanda-like lighting. But one thing's for sure, I would definitely never put this in full sun, because indeed by doing so, you can risk such disastrous effects to this orchid. And this particular angraecum right here is an Angraecum crestwood, and unfortunately it was exposed to frosty conditions. I definitely would not recommend leaving any form of angraecum in temperatures 50 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Now the bloom season of an angraecum orchid will be determined by the type that it is. So be sure to know exactly what you have so you can determine exactly when it should bloom. And the orchid that we are showcasing today normally blooms within the colder winter months. And because in nature angraecums would grow on either tree trunks or within branches of trees, it is suggested that you would use some form of media that would emulate those conditions. A type of media that's going to allow good air circulation and good drainage. Because as you can see, the roots of the angraecum are similar to the Vandas, in which they cannot tolerate being overly saturated, especially for long amounts of time. To do so would cause severe rotting to the orchid. So a good form of media could be bark, perhaps a combination of coal, perlite, and if you wanted to, you could even add some sphagnum moss to retain just a little bit more moisture. And again, I wouldn't want to overly saturate the roots with water, so I definitely would not allow this to soak in water for long amounts of time. Instead, I would just water once or twice a week, of course depending on your conditions, and I would only water as it begins to become dry. That's the only time I would water again. It is also a great idea to keep this orchid in tip-top shape by fertilizing it once every 2 to 3 weeks. After all, our primary goal to taking care of these orchids to the best of our ability is to be able to enjoy such magnificent and stunning orchids, as in this case right here, the Angraecum orchid. And that, my friend, is an absolute angraecum wrap. Now, you guys have to let me know exactly what do you guys think about the angraecums. Are they not phenomenal, or are they not phenomenal? That's right, you guessed it. They are phenomenal. Also, if you guys are growing angraecums as well, please be sure to let me know exactly what type and variety you have, because I always love to check them out to see exactly what ones do I want. So indeed, make sure you post those comments below. And if you guys like this video, you know what to do. Also, if you want to stay tuned to my adventures, please be sure to subscribe. And if you want to write or send me something, you can do that as well at the address below. Also, you guys know I am on Facebook. You can check me out at My Orchid Adventures on Facebook. And I am also on eBay as well, selling some pretty phenomenal orchids. So check me there at eBay. eBay, and I'll share the link in the description below. As you guys already know, I truly do love you guys all. Mwah!